Telling it like it is. Here's Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. So, John, I understand that last week when I asked if your wife might check out whether they were selling bear spray, you thought I was kidding. You didn't know there was bear spray.
I had no idea that was a thing. I just had to plead complete ignorance to you moments ago, and that's just how city I am.
Well, we now have bears in the city, so...
Well, apparently. And aren't you, you're not far from Cabela's, so I would hightail it over there and maybe get you some. And I'm probably not too far behind you. No, I honestly had no idea that there was such a thing as bear spray.
I don't think we really have to get some, but, we do. Obviously, we have a bear in the backyard here, so how big he is, I have no idea. Although he did bend over. You should see. I mean, it's about a half-inch steel pipe, and he just bent it right over. I'd say it's so powerful that I cannot bend it back up straight, honest to God. We're going to have a new steel pole.
I've done that at a few nightclubs in my time, but that's a whole other story, Lowell. Anyway.
Folks, as always, okay, and I really mean this, anything you want to discuss, if there's an issue, a topic that you think we should be discussing, then let us know. I'll be glad to discuss it. I'll raise it here if you want, or I can do some research on it for you. I'll be glad to do it. Let me ask you a question, actually a series of questions here, very important questions. Why do you think that COVID has gotten so out of control in Canada, especially here in Ontario and Quebec, although Alberta is having a tough time too? By now, I'm sure that you know the latest figures, and they are not good. More than 750 now in Ontario alone in ICU beds, hospitals stretched to the very limit, things so desperate in Ontario, and this is what really scares me, should scare you, it probably does. Doctors are now beginning to discuss the possibility of having to decide who lives and who dies. Just think of that. I mean, we're not a third world nation. We are a G7 nation, one of the richest nations on earth, home to the very latest in technology and healthcare, some of the top scientists, some of the top doctors, medical experts in the world right here. But we are on the verge, so they say, of forcing doctors to decide who lives and who dies. You know, when you stop and think about it, that's a battlefield decision. There are times in the heat of battle when medical officials, whoever is there, must make a decision. There is only so much morphine, there is only so much equipment available, that can only treat one, and someone cannot be treated and thus must be left to die. These decisions are made frequently in the battlefield. Well, now they're talking about having to make these kinds of decisions, I guess, in a new kind of battlefield, a battlefield in Canada against COVID. But it begs the question, does it not? Why? Now, we're not the only nation that's got serious problems. Brazil, for example, out of control. But when it comes to Western nations, G7 nations, we are by far the worst. We have the highest rate of infection, the highest rate of deaths, the highest rate of hospitalizations of dozens of nations, particularly in the Western world. Why is that? Now, excuse me. I know that Trudeau. Many of you will blame Trudeau, but there's got to be some more responsibility other than just Trudeau. Here we have a situation. Our hospitals are jammed. Let me just give you. This is a story that actually appeared on Friday in a number of newspapers. Just to give you an idea, a little bit of background. This is from Chris Fox, published Friday at 1 o'clock. Excuse me, my old throat keeps giving out. Here's what the story says, briefly. New modeling suggests that the number of COVID-19 patients in Ontario's intensive care wards will exceed 1,000 by the end of April in every single scenario, raising the specter that the province may have to formally invoke its triage protocol to decide who gets a bed. In other words, to decide who lives, who dies, who gets the equipment that's necessary, who does not. As of Friday, there were 701 people with COVID receiving treatment at ICU beds. Today, there are 750. So just to give you an idea of how fast this thing is growing. The modeling suggests that the number will reach 800 by next week and 1,000 the week after, regardless of what action the Ford government chooses to take. The modeling says that the system-level public health measures could begin to help blunt some of the impact, but that the numbers will nonetheless continue to grow and will reach alarming new heights. Now, you should know that there are about 2,300 ICU beds in Ontario. Right now, as we've just said, COVID patients are taking up 750 of those beds. They say that by the end of this month, they will probably take up 1,000 beds, maybe more, and that by the end of May, they could be very close to 2,000 beds. In other words, be almost no beds for patients with other diseases, other requirements, etc. And so there comes a point when the doctors, and they're talking about it now, there is already a protocol in place. Doctors are talking about a situation where they will have to decide who gets the incubator, who and the inhalers, who gets the treatment, who gets the bed. They will have to judge who stands the best chance of recovery and who does not. Terrible decisions. You would wonder how a country like Canada should ever have to face that kind of decision. So what's gone wrong here? What's gone wrong? Roxanne is on the phone. Yes, Roxanne.
Hi.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
what's gone wrong is we're letting way too many international flights into Canada.
Yes.
Flights that are coming in from hot zones, from India, from other countries that, they've lost control of the virus over there. And, even Rob has talked about it. There's 10 to 12 flights a day that are coming in, and there are people on the planes that have the variants, that have the COVID virus. But you don't see them going into the hotels, which if you go down to Florida and you come back, they'll put you in a hotel and have you pay the $3,000 to stay in the quarantine hotel.
Very true.
They don't.
Yeah, there is no question, Roxanne, that the variants, which are now, they now estimate that the so-called variants, which are much more infectious, comprise about 50% of all cases in Ontario, and they estimate that in the next 2 weeks it will pretty well take over. There is no question that there is no question that they were imported. They arrived here very clearly by aeroplane from other nations. They did not mutate here. The mutations we're talking about originated in the UK and in South Africa and in Brazil. Yes, back to you. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely correct. These viruses were brought in. The variants were brought in.
Very true.
There are variants that are happening among the Canadians because when you catch a virus, our bodies, the way that we reproduce the virus in our bodies, we do create variants, but not these variants. These variants are specific to those locations and have been flown in. But we're letting international flights come in from everywhere, from Vancouver, from Montreal, from Toronto. Even in Calgary or Alberta, there's an international airport where they're letting international flights come in. So, it's nice to sit here and say, okay, well, Ontario, we're going to close down the border to Manitoba, and we're going to close down the border to Quebec, but we're going to let anybody in. Come on in. Don't matter. Let's go. You come from India, you come from wherever, come on in. But you can't go to Manitoba. You can't go to Quebec. They can't come over here because they're toxic. Them.
You understand,
right.
Roxanne? Excuse me, Roxanne. You understand that the decision to close airports or to shut down airplanes, this is a federal decision. You realize that Doug Ford has no say in that, do you?
Oh, absolutely. I know it's not Doug Ford. I don't blame Doug for anything. Doug, I feel bad for him. I mean, he's waiting for Trudeau to do something, and Trudeau's doing nothing. Trudeau's the one letting everybody in.
Thank you for the call. I
feel bad for those doctors. I feel very bad for the doctors if it gets to the point where they're going to have to make the choice of who lives and who dies. It's going to be very hard on them.
Roxanne, can you believe that we have arrived at that situation or very close to it in Canada?
I can't believe it. I just don't. I'm at a loss of words. I can't understand why in Canada. I mean, we're such a rich country. We're such an intelligent country, and why it's gotten to that point. But I put the blame, and I'm sorry, and if it upsets your viewers, your listeners, I put it all on Trudeau. I'm not a fan of Trudeau.
Well, there may be. I think there's some other responsibility to go around, and we'll discuss that a little bit. But certainly when it comes to the importation of the disease, there's no question that responsibility is solely that of the Prime Minister of Canada. Thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate the call. Some very good points. You know, one of the things that's so disconcerting, we'll get to some emails here. So disconcerting is that what I would call peer nations, the UK, the United States, they are finding that their infections rate are declining drastically. The UK, I mean, it's amazing. The story in the UK is amazing. Here is a nation that in January had no domestic manufacturer. They were in the same position as Canada. Nobody in the UK was making the vaccines. They decided immediately. There was a political decision immediately that they were going to begin domestic production, and they did so. They spent the money, they spent the energy, and as a consequence, I've given this figure before, but this is one of the best illustrations of how it could be and should be in this country. In January, in the UK, roughly speaking, there were about 650 new infections daily per million people. Keep that in mind. This is the UK in January. 650 new infections daily per million. In the UK today, guess what? Folks, it's down from 650 per million to under 40. It's somewhere between 37 and 40 right now in the UK, from 650 per million down to below 40. Why? Because over 60% of the entire population is now vaccinated. Almost 40% of the population in the UK has received both vaccinations. Everybody over the age of 50, with very rare exceptions, has now been fully vaccinated in the UK. As a consequence, their infection rate is among the lowest in the world. It's the lowest. The UK infection rate today has gone from the highest in Europe to the lowest. Yes, we got to get a word in here for Shield. I talked a little bit Friday about the fact that Shield in Pakenham has a very worthwhile sale underway right now. If you check out Shields, SCHEELS.ca, there's an S on that on their website, you will see many of the appliances listed there, the regular price and the sale price. And in some cases, you can save, I see savings up to $600 on some appliances, major appliances. So, if you're talking about cost, I've urged before to shop local if you can. They're good people, they're local, but also it means if you're only concerned about price, well, have a check Shield's price. You will be very, very delighted to see that in all probability they can beat anybody's price. At least give them a look. Shields.ca. Yes, John, you've got some text coming in.
We do. On Friday, there was an interview on CBC with a Dr. Callie Barrett. She is a doctor in Ontario. I'm going to post a link to her interview with CBC. If you want to get a feel for what the doctors are facing and the decisions they're having to make in the next little while and how she's trying to prepare herself and her medical team for this, that's a must watch.
I saw it.
It is moving beyond words. I'm glad you saw it.
Yeah, and you know what? I hope that some of those people who still are out there now refusing to put the mask on, et cetera, helping to spread this deadly disease. I hope that some of those people listen to what she had to say.
She was
There are
brilliant.
still people out there who think it's just a scam, you know. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to get through some of these people.
No, Lowell, and I'm sure they're going to say, "Oh, that she's a plant. She's just a talking head. She's been told to say this bullshit."
So essentially every doctor, every nurse, every frontline healthcare worker in the entire country is lying. That's essentially what these no maskers are saying.
Mm-hmm.
They're all lying. It's a giant scam. Involved is everybody, including the coroners, by the way. So every coroner, almost every doctor, almost every nurse, every frontline worker, they're all lying. They're all a bunch of liars. Every single one of them, including, by the way, your own family doctor.
Oh yeah, they all got together one night and just decided this would be funny.
Go ahead, you've got some emails there.
We've got some great comments coming in, and thank you for those. By the way, the phone number here, 613-413-2217. Tim says, Trudeau, Pierre, et fils, that is it. Those are the people who are to blame. Let me see. Mike says, Lowell, we need leadership, not municipal governments going after provincial when governments at different levels are arguing with each other. It does not help at all. Terry, why don't the NDP and Conservatives talk about these planes coming in?
Well, they have. I mean, are you serious? This is one of the problems. Doug Ford has pounded the desk and begged Trudeau, stop the planes, stop it, stop it. In fact, at one point, Ford said, look, if you're not, excuse me, at one point, they weren't even screening people coming in from India, from China, et cetera, et cetera. Doug Ford said, look, if you people in the federal won't do it, we'll do it. It's not our responsibility. We're not really supposed to be doing it, but we will do it. And finally, the federal government decided to do a little bit of screening. But this is one of the problems. And unless it makes Doug Ford look bad, the media, by and large, just totally ignores. Anything to make Trudeau look good and Ford to look bad, that's pretty well 90% of the damn media that's out there. Go ahead, John.
A text at 613-413-2217. Hi, Lowell. Australia has the same shortage of vaccine issues like Canada does, but why are things sort of normal there? They have outdoor cricket games with 33,000 people. Jason asked that question. Nina says Delhi is now under lockdown. Every third sample tested is positive, and 42 flights landed in Toronto carrying infected passengers this month. Closing borders will not work. Closing airports is probably the only way to get a grip on this disaster. Anne says Ford should stop listening to the multitude of medical experts. Too many cooks in the kitchen creates havoc.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Who should he listen to? Facebook? I mean, if he's not going to listen, I mean, God bless you, whoever wrote that. But I mean, would you please put a little bit of thought into this? If he's not going to listen to the medical experts, who the hell should he listen to? I don't get this. I mean, I keep hearing this. Oh, don't listen to the medical experts. Like, what should he do? Just, I don't know, pray and see if God will give him instructions? You have to explain that to me. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to listen to me? I'm not a medical expert. I wouldn't listen to me.
No, why? I mean, why would you go to a doctor? You've got cancer. Why would you go to a doctor? Why not go to a shaman or something?
I'm going to the University of Google for all of my problems going forward. David says, tired of hearing people blame Ford. What the hell can he do? He tries to please everyone and is damned either way. Let me see. Craig says, we have the worst federal government in our history. They're letting Canadians down with their ineptitude. Some emails coming in. By the way, the address is lowell@blasttheradio.com. Lisa says, I had recently been hospitalized, not COVID-related, during which time, as a casual observer, what should happen when Ottawa receives a shipment of vaccines is to vaccinate all hospital personnel with their second shot. Then, if there's leftover vaccine, vaccinate the admitted patients. Everything left over can be sent to the general public 18+. Lisa.
See, here's the problem. I'm not denying that. But here is the problem. Everybody claims that they should be the first. There were claims, and rightly so, that people in long-term care should be vaccinated first. And then the claim was that everybody over the age of 80 should be vaccinated first. And then along came the teachers. Everybody said, well, the teachers should be vaccinated. And then the truckers said, oh, no, we should be vaccinated. And then the retail workers said, no, we should be vaccinated first. So, like, everybody can't be first. Everybody could be first if we had the vaccines. But we don't have the there seems to be an assumption out there that all you have to do is speak up and you will get the vaccine. If we had them, you'd be able to get them. But we have to now. So every time Doug Ford and his medical experts make the decision that this is the group they're going to vaccinate, well, people in the other groups are mad. And they call for it all kinds of names because they didn't get their group. But I mean, somebody's got to make these decisions. Not everybody can be first. It's kind of rudimentary. Yes, John.
Chrissy on Twitch says, this scares the bejesus out of me. MDs having to decide who lives and dies. I hope it never comes to that. Another email. This is Rob in Carlton Place. It is the new variants. Some reasons why I think we are worse off. Number one, we're behind on vaccines. Number two, we are a colder climate, so we stay indoors more. Number three, our healthcare system is a public system and cannot respond as fast as countries with private systems. Number four, we did not implement a thorough contact tracing program. Number five, international travel. And finally, Rob in Carlton Place says, extremely poor examples set by leadership not following the rules.
Yeah, I think lost in some of this is, while I think Trudeau has to bear the brunt of the responsibility, I think I disagree with some of the decisions made by Doug Ford, but I understand. I mean, as you know, somebody's got to be last. Somebody's got to be first, which means somebody's got to be last. But there's got to be some responsibility accepted by some members of the public. The fact of the matter is that even without the vaccines, if everybody did what they are supposed to, stayed 6 feet apart, et cetera, then we wouldn't have the problem we've got today. This virus does not leap on its own, okay? It's got to go from person to person. In order to go from person to person, those persons have got to be close together and have got not to be wearing masks, et cetera, in most cases. There may be some rare exceptions. But the public that's not following the rules, having these big parties and so forth and going around, the Randy, what's his name, Hilliers of the world, they've got to accept some responsibility, even without the vaccines. I mean, there are some nations, New Zealand, for example, they had an early shutdown, and Taiwan, early shutdown, and people, for the most part, did what they are supposed to. As a consequence, they don't have the problems we've got here. So we've got the problem of Trudeau, we've got the problem of international travel going unscreened, and we've got the problem of large groups of people thinking it's all a scam and they don't have to follow the rules. Yes, John.
Hey, Lowell, there were a lot of protests this past weekend, including some of the Byward Market. Why are we not seeing these groups arrested? What's your take on that?
It's a very good question. I don't know. It's whether they're afraid of making martyrs out of these people. The fact is that some of these people in these protests, there was a big one in Barrie as well.
Yep.
But I guess they think they're doing the right thing, protesting for freedom, et cetera. They don't really seem to. I think at the basis of this is they don't believe that this is real. And what it's going to take to convince them, I don't know. If and when, God hope not, if doctors have to start deciding who lives and dies, do you think that may convince some of them? What would it take, for example, what would it take to convince a Randy Hillier to use his leadership to convince people to wear the mask, to keep your distance, and to carry out public safety rules? What would convince a guy like Randy Hillier? Could anything? I don't know. I can't figure out these brains, or what's left of these brains. Excuse me. Centennial Glass. Got to get a word in for some more good people here. Local business. I tell you, more and more, we've got to support local business, or there'll be no local business left. The big box stores, the big companies, they're always going to be there. They'll be there. You know, they've got all sorts of, not only in many cases, are they got the backing of billions of dollars of international money, but it seems to me that the Trudeau government in many cases is favoring some of these companies, giving big grants out to companies like Loblaws, et cetera. But I'm going to tell you, nobody's handing out money to Centennial Glass. Nobody's handing money out to Shields. Nobody's handing money out to the local little butcher shop. Okay, I can guarantee you that, and they're only surviving on their own efforts. If they're surviving at all. So help them. Centennial Glass is a good company, here for a long time. They're local. They're good people. They're honest. They do good work, and the prices are very, very reasonable. if you can, please give them a chance. Yes, John, more emails.
First, some business. A shout out to one of your sponsors. Just come in from text. Terry and Lynn say, just wanted to let you know we ordered an air conditioner from Shields on Friday. It's being delivered this Wednesday to our little burg of Finch.
Good.
Thank you, Terry.
Good.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, Peter says Ford begged Trudeau to shut the stupid airports down while they remain open and unloading sick people from places like India. Stop the damn incoming flights. Doug Ford wants to do something, send the OPP down to the airport and refuse the people access unless they hold Canadian citizenship. Close it down. You can go online and see how many are landing full of people.
Yep.
We got Randy saying another issue is Pearson Airport is a gateway to other countries from other countries. For example, you can board a flight from the U.S., go to Europe with a transfer in Toronto. The person never enters Canada as they stay in the secured area. However, the workers are all Canadian, and if they get infected, they will bring it home to their families.
Very true.
Mike says they just lowered the age from 55 to 40 tomorrow for AstraZeneca. It's because nobody wants the AstraZeneca vaccine. Anthony says, do you want to take AstraZeneca? My answer is a resounding no. I will only take either Pfizer or Moderna.
Yeah, that's a decision that you can make. I think you have to go with what most of the doctors and health experts are saying, and that is that the risk is very, very low, far lower than contracting COVID. My youngest daughter, Leanne, who lives in Quebec, she got the AstraZeneca, the AZ, the other day from a local pharmacy. She went to the pharmacy. She said that she was the only one there. They had all sorts of vaccines ready, and she was the only one that was there. So it could very well be that a lot of people aren't aware that some of the pharmacies have this yet. There is a reluctance, but I'm going to tell you, if it was me, I would take whatever is available. If and I think, John, you agree with me that if whatever is available, absolutely.
There's a social media star. Most people, I think, have probably seen and heard him. His name's Brittlestar. They may not recognize the name, but Brittlestar is one of the top social media performers. He's got a video out today comparing, if I'm offered the AZ vaccine or the Moderna or the Pfizer, I mean, it's Coke versus Pepsi. He doesn't ask who made his the medication that's in his inhaler today. He doesn't ask who's made his antidepressant. He just takes it because it's prescribed to him and he knows it's good. Howard, by the way, just chimed in. He says he's taken the AstraZeneca shot because it's what was offered to him and it's better than nothing. No side effects, and frankly, he doesn't care either. If it was that bad, it would be pulled. Nothing is 100% perfect. Thank you, Howard.
And in light of the gravity, the rapidity that this thing is spreading, man, oh man, if you've got a chance at a vaccine, whatever it is, for God's sake, take it. I mean, the risk is certainly far less than catching these variants. I mean, what's happening? I mean, by the way, the case of the incidence of infection in Ontario has increased 56% in the last 20 days. That shows you how fast. The increase is exponential. If you've got a chance at a vaccine, for God's sake, take it. Immediately. Rush down there. Get there. I have yes, we have another phone call, John.
We're just going to this right out of the blue. Don't know who's on the phone, but go ahead. You are on live with Lowell Green.
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Lowell. This is Jace.
Yes, Jace.
I'll take whatever I can get as soon as I can get and put me in there as fast as possible, please and thank you.
Good for you.
It blows my mind. I don't understand why we're behind. We've got way more anti-maskers in the U.S. than in Canada. They're not taking it seriously like we are. I don't believe they are anyway. But how are our numbers so much higher than everything else? I really don't get it. But by golly, I mean, as soon as we can get it, and I don't understand why they're starting to include 40-year-olds. I'm 55. They haven't called me yet. Like, I put my name in, but it's like, sign me up, coach. Put me in. Get me in there. I'll do it.
You know what? Don't wait for them to call. My advice, and this comes from my daughter. They were supposed to have called my daughter. They didn't call, so she called them, and they said, "Yeah, come on down right away," which she did. So my advice is, give them a call. Give the pharmacy a call. You may be very surprised, and it gets you in maybe this afternoon.
Right on. Thanks, Paul.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thanks for calling. On a slightly different topic, I'm the only one apparently that's concerned about Line 5. I can't get over the fact that nobody seems concerned about the fact that we may lose essentially half the oil and gas and propane that we need in this province and all of the jet fuel. You know what? That's if they shut down Line 5, we won't have to worry about Pearson Airport. They won't have any jet fuel for any jets. I contacted, once again, this is the third time now, contacted the office of the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Can never talk with her. I wanted to see what's happening with Line 5. Negotiations between Canada and the United States were supposed to have started last Friday. So I got through to the office, and by now, the secretary recognizes me and said, "Oh, Mr. Green calling from Canada." "Yes, it is." I said, "What's new?" "Well, nothing as far." I said, "Well, they started negotiations on Friday." "Oh, did they?" I said, "You didn't hear anything about it?" "No, we didn't." I said, "The governor was not involved?" "No, she wasn't." "So is the plan still to shut down Line 5 on May 11th? As far as we know, that's it." So I tried to get hold of Seamus O'Regan. This is the giant brain that's supposed to be looking after our interests here. There's nobody in Seamus's office has any idea what I'm talking about. You phone Seamus O'Regan's office and mention Line 5, they don't have the freaking faintest idea what I'm talking about. Line 5 brings in almost half of all the oil, the gas, the propane, and all of the jet fuel into Ontario and Quebec. Jesus, you should know. Yes, John, go ahead.
Just a couple of comments to wrap up the show here. Joseph says Ford has been put in a no-win situation after taking over after a Liberal government, the same way the next federal leader will be when he or she takes over from these Liberals. Lowell asks Chrissy, what do you think of Ford reversing parks being open over the weekend, and what about the OPP not stopping cars after all, checking to see where you're going?
Well, I mean, here's the situation. He got some feedback that wasn't very good, so he said, okay. He listened. I mean, this is in a situation like that, you can't win. Okay, so if he hadn't changed, everybody would be mad. He doesn't listen. So he listened and said, okay, we'll open the playground. So now he's flip-flop. I mean, geez, you want the guy to listen to what people are saying, or do you not? And if he does listen to the people, will you please stop criticizing? Okay, we're almost out of time here. Go
just
ahead,
a couple
John.
of quick ones, Lowell, but you can wrap this up whenever you just tell me to shut up and I'll shut up.
Okay.
As you normally do. Barry writes in by email. He says, when will someone at a Trudeau press conference have the fortitude to tell Trudeau he has blood on his hands for all these vaccine delays that are causing a lot of deaths? That's a question from Barry. And Peter says, Line 5 is important to me. Mainstream media is not talking about it. Too busy talking Wave 4 and anti-maskers. I've been talking Line 5, but no one seems to care. But when we got no oil, etc., they will cry.
Thank you all. Some very good response. I really appreciate it. Thank you, John.
We'll be back.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. Join us live weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on blasttheradio.com.